What is the Insights Discovery approach to giving feedback? If you have a team, or you yourself are already using Insights Discovery profiles, then it is useful to make the most of it. And one of the ways that you can do that is apply the colours to the way that you give feedback. I've been using the Insights approach to feedback for many years. It's a really great way to understand where your strengths lie, where you might cut corners, the things you tend to overdo. In today's video, I'm going to take you through the 4 different steps of the Insights model, one step at a time. I will then also take you through how to adapt that particular model to different people depending on who you have in front of you. I'm not going to get into the 4 colours today, I'm going to assume you know those, but I have got a video that will explain the colours to you again in case you want to get yourself a quick recap. In the Insights model, we start with data. This sits in the cool blue zone of the model, and it's all about making sure you've got your facts straight. What KPIs have you got? What numbers have you got? How many times? When? Where? With whom? It's all the details that are not up for discussion or dispute. If you are getting some resistance in your feedback and it's around the data, then you need to be sure that you're not confusing data with opinion or interpretation of data. I often say to my clients, if you put a CCTV camera up and you filmed what happened, what exactly would I see if I turned the sound off? How would anybody describe what was happening on the screen with the sound off? Or if I turned the vision off, I turned the picture off, what would we hear? Who says what? How do they say it? How do we describe exactly what they said? So we need to be as factual as possible. If you're giving feedback and you have statistics, KPIs, numbers, measurables, customer feedback, whatever data you're referring to, this is where it belongs. The next step of the Insights feedback model is depth. This is in the earth green zone of the profile, and this is about depth of feeling. Now this is interesting because a lot of models don't use feeling or feelings in general in the feedback, but I would argue that we are humans who are feeling creatures, and if you're emotionally engaged in your feedback, then it makes it more personal. It shows that you have given reflection to the impact it has on you. Lots of models talk about impact, but they don't necessarily talk about feelings. So for example, if you had data that was 3 times this week the person has been late by 15, 10 and 20 minutes each time, the feeling might be frustration. Maybe you're frustrated that they've been late 3 times. Maybe you're sad or disappointed at their timekeeping. Maybe you're confused about why they're late when they're not normally late. But the important is that you're feeling something. Important at this point, however, to point out that you are giving a feeling and not a thinking. And this does confuse people. So if you find yourself saying something like, well, I felt like you didn't care, then that is not a feeling, that is a thinking. You were thinking that they didn't care. What you were probably feeling was confused or concerned or disappointed. If feeling vocabulary is something you struggle with, there is something called a feelings wheel. I've put an example of it here that helps you understand the kind of core feelings that people might be dealing with and to give you some vocabulary to work with. If you don't know how you feel to fill in this part of your feedback plan, then that's a really good thing for you to know. The third part of the model moves us into the sunshine yellow part of the wheel. In this part of the model, we're looking at dramatic interpretation. So this is the story you're telling yourself or the interpretation that you have of the data and the emotion that we've already talked about. You could, for example, get exactly the same situation that leads to frustration, but your interpretation of what's going on might be different. So you can say, well, you've been late 3 times. I'm quite frustrated about that. You might then come to the conclusion that the person doesn't care, but you could also come to the conclusion that there's something really wrong in their home life and that they need your help. So it's really your opportunity to explain what you think is happening. Now, this isn't fact. This is just your perspective or your perception of events. And you can have the same data very different emotions attached to it, but you can also have the same data and the same emotion and a different interpretation that comes out of it. And the final stage of the model, we move into the fiery red section, and here it's all about the doing. It's the action section. This is the what I need and what I want part of the model. If you're giving feedback, you're probably doing it for a reason. So what is it you need and what is it you want? What is the point? Do you need more information? Do you want to understand what is happening? Do you want something to change? Do you need for them to express something that they need from you? It may be as simple as, I really need to explore this with you a little bit further and understand whether my data is accurate and to help understand whether my interpretation is correct. Depending on your personal style, you may find that one of those 4 sections comes really easily to you and one of those is a little bit more of a stretch. It's great to have a model that works through 4 steps. That doesn't mean that you can't adapt it. So what I tend to do is I tend to know what goes into each section and occasionally shuffle them around. It's okay if you know you're dealing with someone who needs to know what the point is straight away, to start with a, look, this is what I need, let me explain why, and then to go back round. It may also be what the person really needs from you is the depth of feeling first. So for them, it is more important to know that they've had a personal impact on you, that it's affecting you emotionally, and then knowing that you're affected emotionally, they can then go through the other steps with you. If you already know the personality of the person in front of you, then you can make sure that you spend enough time in the quadrant that is likely to be most important to them. And as a bit of a bonus, if you're giving feedback and the reaction or the response that you're getting isn't what you expected, you can also trace this back to the model. Because if, for example, you're getting 100 questions about your data source, then chances are you've not invested enough time in that cool blue data part of your feedback planning, or your data is questionable. Maybe the quality of it, the accuracy, or the types of data you're providing are not the right things the person needs to hear to be able to accept your feedback. If, for example, the person's response is a questioning your emotion, as if somehow your emotion is inaccurate, then that might suggest that you're not actually sharing an emotion, you're not sharing a feeling, you're sharing a thinking. If you're giving it more as a thinking, then yes, it might attract some questions. If you're giving feedback and nothing's happening off the back of it, then maybe you haven't put enough emphasis into the action part of the model. Maybe you haven't been clear about what you need or what you want. If somebody's saying, well, I understand the facts and I understand what you're wanting me to do and I know you're upset about it, but so what? I mean, it doesn't really matter, does it? What that suggests to me is that they haven't understood your dramatic interpretation. So it is not clear what you're concluding and why this is relevant to you. So to wrap up, you can give feedback based on insights discovery. You do not need a profile to be able to do it. You just have to be able to work your way through the steps from data to depth of feeling to dramatic interpretation and to doing. If you'd like to know any more about how to apply the model in practice based on your personality profile that you have or the person that you're dealing with, feel free to get in touch and we can talk about your personal situation in a little bit more detail. I will put some more information into the description as well with a one-pager to help you to remember what goes into each section and to prepare yourself fully for giving a piece of feedback.